Welcome to the show, Brain Health, Unchaining Your Pain. And I am really, really excited to have Chris Ross on the show with me today on episode 13, just before Christmas. And I know this is going to go out after Christmas, but super excited to have you here. Chris Ross is the founder and CEO of Winjet, and he's really helped me put this show on the road and make it the success it is. Just before Christmas, and we reached our target, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. You called it, and I was actually pretty amazed by that. You know, obviously with the website, people that were putting like where they strip all the numbers and they pull it off of different platforms of downloads and streams, and you called it. Right before Christmas, I'm gonna hit 1 million downloads. I was like, okay, we'll see what happens, and then boom. I was like, that was pretty cool. But yeah, thanks for having me on. The lucky number 13. Everything I do is unconventional, right? So it was all good.
So I thought we'd take the opportunity in this episode for those that are listening and also watching to really reflect on the last 12 weeks before Christmas. Mm-hmm. And the reason I came up with this is not just because it's 12 weeks, but it's a really poignant reminder of the fact that my daughter was 12 days late and born on Christmas Day. My daughter's Lily, so there's a kind of a bit of a joke in the background there for the 12 weeks, 12
days.
It's
a very significant number for you, for sure. How is Lily? Is Lily ready for Christmas?
She's been so ready. She's just like, Mummy, when I've opened my advent calendar, it's my birthday. So the poor lady, she's got the longest wait to any child because she's got that huge build up.
When is her birthday?
On Christmas Day.
Is it Christmas Day? Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't know that. Okay.
Well. Yeah, I was the Christmas cracker.
Yeah.
I always said, I'm going to be a Christmas cracker. I didn't realise I was literally going to be the Christmas cracker.
You're calling everything this year. Yeah, because I've been, obviously, it's one of my favorite things to do on social. We were just actually having a conversation about this. I have a block schedule in my mornings to focus on certain things that keep me focusing. That way I'm able to accomplish my task for the day. And I have 15 minutes for social media where I'm actually responding, engaging with people. And it's actually me. It's not my staff. But it's one of my favorite things to do is I click on your page and get to watch the Lily clips. I can't wait. It's like my favorite part. She's so cute.
We'll try and do something before Christmas, but kids are so unpredictable. It's so difficult to try and get them to do anything. So
Right.
So let's have a deep dive, shall we, into the 12 weeks before Christmas. And I know we had awesome Jess Lee on the episode initially. She was the first episode 1, and she really hit the road with talking about her brain health and what it really meant to her.
Yeah, and it was real quick. I'm not going to cut you off. I want to touch on this, and this show was a challenge when this show came about, and when we met, and it was kind of funny how we met, and then obviously what you've done for me personally, and when you've relieved me in unchaining some of the pain that I was harboring and holding on to for a very, very long time, and I was looked at it in a different perspective. And then, of course, I'm the kind of person when I walk into a room, I'm going to find the opportunities and I'm going to find the positive things. And I knew what I was building with the Winjet, and I was like, oh, I have a show. I have a show idea. And this show was a challenge because I knew how hard it was going to be to distribute and then also display the trauma in a certain way for people to really understand that you're not alone. Out there in the world. So this show for me, it was a personal challenge, but it was also a way of showing the world that it can be done, because there's a lot of confidentiality stuff, and there's just very uncommon. You see a show that does extremely well like this, and I think it's also a testament on how well you are at what you do for a living. And you've heard me say this on a numerous occasion, especially even inside the community. I shine a light on some of the things that you do unconsciously. Right? I gave you some, not tips, but just to shine a light on it. And it was like, you were like, wait a minute, I do that. How
I do.
but that does show that you create an environment for people to really truly feel safe.
Yeah.
And they are able to share so much. And I just want to say that publicly, that was just, it's amazing to watch.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that feedback. And for those listening, you know, it's been a huge journey for me. Thanks, Paula. That's my sister-in-law. Great.
Oh, hello.
Listening from us. It's
That's
either
Dave's,
my mum or my
Dave's sister.
The same name.
Dave's sister?
No, my sister-in-law.
Oh, okay. Good. All right.
Yeah, or my mum. It's difficult to know because they're both called the same. So thank you. Yeah, it's really nice that you said that, but it's been a real journey for me personally to get to be able to create that safe space for people, because it's such an important thing to do. And I felt that we are in a world where people don't create the safe space to have open and honest conversations and to be able to do the deep work on themselves, because we're either too busy or people have different agendas, you know.
True.
And it, you know, that lack of safe space was really evident when I was working in the corporate world, and I know we talked about this on your show. And when you are in a huge amount of pain, the only way you can really unchain it effectively is to feel safe, to do the unchaining, to do the deep work on yourself. And if that safety isn't present, our amygdala is activated, which is
100%,
you know, part of our fight-flight response. So you'll never be able to unchain the pain when you're in an escape mode, whatever that mode, you know, that escape mechanism that you choose it to be. And I think it's something that we massively miss in today's society, to allow people that opportunity to be vulnerable. And often vulnerability is our greatest strength. And I know, you know, this show is courtesy of my dad, really, because if I hadn't lost him, I'm going to have to haven this.
I was already doing it with my hands. I'm like, see a show? Yeah.
Yeah, if I hadn't lost him and had to go through the unchaining my own pain, this show wouldn't be here. So super.
He's watching. He's watching, that's for sure. And that's not to get obviously personal. I just wanted to shine a light on, this is not as easy as it looks. You know, because I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions of why to start a show. Should I start a show? It takes a lot of courage. I mean, this is a different way for people that have been around you for you to display your talents and skills and really show what you're all about. And you're really here. I think that podcasting and the way that a show needs to be distributed, it is different for every single person and every outcome that you're looking for. And there's a driving factor behind everything. And for yourself, it was your father of going through that. And that's how I feel about what I particularly do for a living, and especially even in this entity of Winject Studios. I see things in people that they typically don't see. And that's one of my superpowers, is seeing potential in individuals and knowing what's available on the outside of that, if they're willing to go through that pain. Yeah. And that was something that I was holding on to for a very long time, because I felt that I was good enough to even still go through it and go through my day. And that 10% part of me, I was holding on to because I wasn't ready to address it yet.
Yeah.
And just like this, I think it's a way for you to still go through your healing process, because if you're never healed, it's a healing process every day, just like everything else. So you actually working through the show and really helping people through their stories, their perspectives, when they see the way they see the world isn't the way that particularly you see the world. Everybody has a different perspective, and everyone has different talents and skills. And that's what's so great about, especially this show, not just any show out there, that you're giving them a different way of looking at their situation. And they go, wait a minute, because I'm going to be honest with you. when I listen to shows, I don't listen for what they're saying. I'm listening for different, maybe even some of the cues that people don't normally pick up on. And I think that we've discovered this through some of the episodes. I watched every
Yeah.
single one, that there's a lot of unresolved trauma.
Absolutely,
That
there is.
still,
Yeah, you can hear it.
you can hear it. And of course, this is where we go. I instantly go to compassion with it. And because I can't hold on to that. And I'm watching the clips and I'm watching the episodes, because that's my job as the executive producer to figure out, how do we distribute this the right way? I mean, this person needs to go in front of this one. This person needs to go in. It's there's a lot of thought process that comes behind this. And there's a lot of, even through these 12 episodes, and there's so many more that we already have coming up. And I'm so excited for what's going to happen.
Me too. There's some amazing
stories. But anyways, I just wanted to obviously start it off with that. And I don't know how much time. I don't have anything behind us for a little while, so we're good to go. But yeah, the first, we talked about Jess Lee. Jess Lee, another example. I met Jess Lee about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we met just in passing. My staff was looking for guests for season 3 of the Win-Win Effect. And it was the first season outside of the deal that I brokered for, obviously, the trade schools in America, of teaching people the methodology of what I do. And they reached out and we got in contact. And then I met, it's like when you met people, right? And then you go and the energies meet and you're like, whoa, this person's been through a lot.
Yeah.
She didn't even tell me. And I felt it, because commonality, right? I mean, obviously, if someone's been through a lot of trauma, then you can pick up on that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And her story, in her episode, when we recorded it, it was only audio. It was so deep. Did you listen to that episode? It was so deep.
I did. I think I listened to it. Yeah, it was really good.
It was such a great story. And then, of course, that's how another thing, the idea came up with Windjet. It popped in my head of people trying to hurt her in the music industry and trying to get her to conform and dye her hair and wear skimpy clothing. And it's not about her morals and what she's trying to accomplish and not what she wants to do. And that's kind of goes back to this. And then her story was it's so deep, especially if even her, like she came in hot right from the beginning of her perspective of what optimal brain health means. That's
she did.
Great opening question.
She was on fire.
On fire. I was like, whoa, here we go. Because like me personally, it was kind of like an accomplishment of myself, because I matchmaked it. I was like, yes, I can't wait for this to happen.
And do you know what I really loved about that show? Is that her, and we see this a lot across many of the episodes, but hers is particularly shone the light on it, is the fact that her escape mechanism from the trauma has become her superpower. And she's really taken that experience, and I can talk many people such as Charlie Smith and Chris Parsons. Their escape became their superpower to become the success they are today, or one of their escape mechanisms anyway. And she's just such a phenomenal voice, and such a phenomenal mission beyond just her voice. That's what I think is so powerful about her story, is the fact that she's taken that experience, and she's reflected this in some of her songs as well.
She has. You should hear some of the new ones going to be coming out. Oh my gosh.
And her voice is like, she's like, for me, she'd probably hate me for saying this, maybe. But for me, she's the Beyonce of country.
Oh, she would love that compliment. And I would actually agree with that. She's got one of those voices. You can literally feel her emotion.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's polarizing. Like Jess Lee, obviously manager, and boyfriend Steve Virginia is also my manager. And her show, the Jess Lee Road Show, broke over 4 million downloads in the first season, just for everyone to know. But that's how all this came about. But Steve was saying she's bigger than country music, and I was 100% agreement with that. She's genreless. She's truly genreless. She can sing any song, but I think what is her superpower, she needs to be emotionally connected to that song, and it makes her powerful. So shout out to Jess Lee. Love you. Merry Christmas to her family. They're all in Florida right now, but yeah, I can't wait for obviously what's to come of the beautiful Jess Lee.
Yeah, and I really am excited for her future based on, what she's already accomplished.
And shout out to her mom as well. Her mom is so powerful, so powerful. Like her whole family, they're she's multifaceted, and you can tell if you just spend the time and invest the time to really get a gauge of her energy, and you see that she has the capacity to take it anywhere you want to take it.
Yeah. And you know what also is really poignant about the show, that particular episode, is she's really done the deep work on herself.
Yes, she had to. She had no choice.
You can tell it in a voice, you can tell it in a passion, you can tell it in the power that she's truly unchained her pain, or seems to have unchained her pain, and is really, we sometimes call it post-traumatic growth. If she's leveraged the trauma and turned it on its head and used it to propel her forward and to achieve something extraordinary, despite what's happened or because of what's happened, depending on what way you want to look at it.
I don't know if you would agree with this, but I was thinking about this, I think it was like 2 days ago. Tend to reflect on your life towards the end of the weeks, and when your things start slowing down, when you're not getting hit from every direction, known to man in business, right? But I was thinking about when it comes to unresolved trauma and things that you continue to keep discovering.
Yeah.
Just like as a healing process. And I think that's why they say it that way, because you're never healed, because you're always going to discover something new.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to relive certain events that have happened in my life and looking at it in a different perspective than the way I've ever seen it before. And that's also just coming through some of the techniques that you've taught me.
Yeah.
And like and then now there's no emotional charge to that. And I think that's something that's going to be beautiful to watch with her artistry, is that her being able to, she's a great writer, phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
Her giving people a different way of looking at the way the world is.
Yeah.
And she's just like, she's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how do you feel about that? Like there's that unresolved trauma, but you keep discovering more.
You do. Yeah. And it depends on how the trauma's encoded in your mind.
Okay.
So sometimes you can unlock it. If you think of trauma like a tree, and the seed can get planted early on in life, or it can get planted any time in your life, but let's just say it's planted early on, and then that tree grows and it grows branches. And so if you tap into one of the branches of the tree, then you can end up tracing its line back to the root of the tree.
That's powerful. I like that analogy. I think that's another thing, the reason why I love what you do. You use a lot of analogies. And I love that, because it gives them it takes the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Of the point of view conversation. Because if you're stuck on a point of view conversation, and if you don't use an analogy, they feel like you're convincing them of something.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where you do it unconsciously, you don't realize you do it.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's so important, because I've come from a physics background, and not many people understand physics. So you have to break it down into things that people can understand, and I often use analogies, because otherwise everything just goes straight over people's
right.
to kind of catch it.
They're like, what was that? I like to do that in speeches. Yeah, when I'm actually speaking in front of audiences, I like to do things like that and drop it on one side of the room and then come back, and then I'll see them catch it. I'm like,
so talking about analogies and sort of simplicity, I think one of the things I've really enjoyed on the show is leveraging the framework that we use to kind of tease out the 5 pillars of brain health. So this is the framework I use within my coaching, and within the Wellbeing Academy, the Wellbeing Warrior Academy, is is we look at the 5 pillars of brain health, which is remembered by the mnemonic FACTS.
Yes.
And FACTS, you and me military, or you're ex-military, is we always need good, easy mnemonics to remember, because otherwise it's difficult, isn't it? So FACTS stands for feelings, F is for feelings, A is for actions, C is for connections to ourselves and to others, T is for thoughts, and S is for surroundings. And those 5 pillars are really like fundamentals that help us optimize our brain health. And if you haven't got control of all of those or awareness of all of those, then you can't truly optimize your unique brain, because if one's missing, then you are missing that opportunity for optimization. And it's really, what I found really interesting is to see how they show up, how these 5 pillars really show up in people's lives, and particularly in the context of trauma, unresolved trauma, and how, you know, our surroundings can trigger trauma. Because we are not separate from our surroundings. Our brain is shaped by our surroundings, and that's 100%. The pillar. And so, it, you know, what you talked about, sometimes things come up from our past. Well, sometimes they can come up because a smell or a sight or a sound or a particular piece of furniture, whatever it may be, has triggered that memory from our past, that perhaps because we had such a cluttered mind previously, or emotionally charged mind, we were blind to see it. But now we can see it, which gives us access to memories that perhaps
That's interesting. That's a very interesting perspective when it comes to your surroundings. Me knowing what I know now through investigating that part in times in my life, I would be very curious to go back home next time. And I haven't been back home, you know, obviously COVID and all this other personal reasons, and me being in the UK, but going back in those type of surroundings and seeing what I've done now, and obviously going through and just the healing process, and going back to those surroundings, and I'm pretty sure a slew of things will come up. Just because
and we find that with people recovering from trauma, is that, you know, when you have trauma encoded, your mind encodes a vast volume of information.
Too much, yes, floods.
But the information that really initiates the trigger can be the thing that you totally focused on. So if you were focused in the foreground, so if you're looking at me, if I triggered you, you would that would be your primary activation. But also in the background, you know, behind me, I've got cushions and bookshelves and stuff. So whilst you can remove, you know, the trigger of me associated with the experience, if you haven't taken the time to remove the background triggers as well, then those things can come into your vision when you recall the experience.
100%. It's like looking at an outer body experience.
Yeah.
Because like the only thing I can see right now of you is your frame. If I turned your frame, now I'm looking at something else, and it might change the whole equation.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's easy to, you know, people don't understand trauma enough to appreciate that it's really important to acknowledge everything that the person experiences. You know, people with tics often they have tics as a result of a past trauma,
and somatic markers.
Yeah, and actually you can help people remove that by doing offering the right therapy that targets the particular trauma. And that's what the technique, you know, we've used emotional mindset management approach that you've done with me, which combines havening with other techniques, is to make sure that people remove the whole aspect of that trauma and focus it particularly on that key event or experience if it's been enduring.
Right. One thing that is another person you interviewed is actually my personal trainer, Nazi Khatun.
Oh yeah.
When she started very first like working with me, I mean, just to give a little bit more context, I've sacrificed my health for my wealth at one point in my life, and just because I was focusing on dialed in, and I couldn't work out the way that I used to work out. Obviously, that's being prior military. You would understand what I'm talking about through previous injuries that I had and that occurred in my life. And I couldn't work out that way anymore. And it was so frustrating. And I got to a point, 4 years ago, I quit. I was like, oh, the hell with it, and then I started eating like crap. And then anyways, but I needed a trainer to teach me a different way. And that's something that she applies, the neurochemistry, the neuroscience, obviously with focusing on you first, like self-love. And that she's a huge advocate of self-love. And I love that where she's helped, I'm telling you, she's a diamond in the rough where, I mean, even the Celebrity Trainer episode 2, Mark Jenkins. He's worked with P. Diddy. You see how I'm doing? I can't even know how I'm doing this. Beyonce, Genuine. Remember not Genuine, D'Angelo, the video back in 90 something where his big breakout. He was the guy that obviously helped mold that body. Okay.
Yeah.
He's been involved with just pretty much anybody. Busta Rhymes, Lips Goes Down.
Yeah.
He's been around some pretty predominant individuals. And when he met Nazia for the first time virtually, he was like, whoa, she's big. She's got a live today with Mark Jenkins at 2 p.m. GMT. But that's going to be a one to watch. Winjic Studios. Make sure you do that. And see my little plugs? But I'm getting pretty good at this. But when she was working with me at the beginning, did a consultation, and she did a thing on my shoulders. And it was funny. It was right after we were doing work on havening.
Yeah.
And I was standing straight up. And I have dislocated my right shoulder a few times playing sports back in the day.
Yeah.
But I was tilted on my right side just a little bit. And she picked up on that somatic marker. But her being exposed to so many different types of a wide variety of clients, men and women, she picked up on it. And then she started asking questions. Not that, hey, what happened to your shoulder? She was like, well, that's the injury. That's the excuse that you're telling yourself of what happened. But what are you holding on to?
Yeah.
And I was like, shit. Excuse my language.
And we do hold on to
and now it's gone. Now it's gone. And the weight, and when I was holding on to things, and the weight, everything that I was holding on to just fell right off me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's mad, isn't it? And I think, people don't take the time to make the connection between the physical pain that they're experiencing to the emotional pain that they've still got stored in their mind. And there is a huge connection. And Dr. Gabor Mate talks a lot about this, is when the body says no, is his book, is how we hold on to trauma
100%
in our bodies because our minds don't have the capacity to hold it. So they store it elsewhere. And I know this from personal experience from having a C-section as well. And I won't go into that, but basically the trauma was, is stored where the cut happens, and also is linked back to my mind as well. And so a lot of chronic pain that people experience is believed to be a result of unresolved psychological trauma.
I would 100% agree with this. 100%.
And so the drugs don't always work because it's not targeting the actual area of pain. And we know from the work I do, a lot of people, and you know from firsthand, is that when you let go of the emotional burden that you're carrying with you, it's like taking off a rucksack.
That's the analogy you used, but I said something else, but we're not going to use the words that I used.
So I think it's really important. And traditional medical science or medicine, the traditional approaches are not enough to help people unchain their pain, because they're very much focused on the expression of pain rather than the root cause of the pain. That's
something that I did not do well with, is therapy, like vocal. And for personal reasons, I think it's because of all the things that we know now today and all the work I've done with people and in companies and the people that I've been exposed to. They were giving me this like Sunday school stuff. And I say Sunday school just to let everyone know, it's just like the bullcrap answers. And they didn't really give me any solutions. They just wanted me to talk about the problem. I'm like, that's the end result. I
And
need
sometimes you don't want to
solutions.
talk about it.
No, I didn't want to. It was very forced. I feel like I
Yeah.
was on a first date. It was weird. It was like, so let's talk about all the bad shit. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
That I really don't want to talk
I
about,
really
and
don't
it's
want to
just
talk
going to make
about
me
this.
feel worse.
Yeah, that's just. And then I walked out of here, and I was like, and then I feel horrible. Now I'm
Yeah.
in depression because
Yeah.
I didn't like it. So that for
Yeah.
me, havening was the spot. That was
Yeah.
the one of the key pivotal things that I've experienced in 2021 that I thought that I was actually on a really good path, and I've put in a lot of work in the last 2 years. But that's
Yeah.
something that just put some rocket fuel behind it. And just to kind of go back to what you're saying with the pharmaceutical sales, well, we're in the UK. Well, obviously I'm American, and that's a hard push in America is pharmaceutical sales. They don't have infomercials here like they do in the States. But if
Yeah.
you're up late in the States, you're gonna if you're watching TV,
You
you're
get
going to get
bombarded.
hit with so much infomercials about if you ever experience blah, 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 if you ever experience blah, 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 blah. And they're just pushing pharmaceutical stuff. And then, and of course, and this is a whole other topic, but the doctors, they get paid through obviously these distributors of these pharmaceutical companies to push their product. It's a great movie. It's called Love and Drugs or whatever it's called with Jake Gyllenhaal. If you watch that movie, you'll know what I'm talking about.
No, I haven't watched it, but I will.
That's a great movie. And they're really his job as a salesperson is to push the pharmaceutical sales. He was the guy behind the breakout of Viagra and pushing that. I think is it Filter? I can't remember what it's called, but whatever the company is, I can't remember it in the movie. But it's a pretty good story. Of course, they tied into a love part of the movie to make it more obviously easier for people to consume. But if that's a hard push for people, because of what typically happens when someone has a lot of trauma and unresolved things, with depression, how to get to the depression is suppressed emotions. And they're suppressing these emotions that lead to depression and uncomfortable feelings. And they give them something else to mask it by a pill to make them feel happy. And then when the pill wears off, they obviously at nighttime or however the prescription is and whatever the side effects of that drug to your particular body, because you're special and unique, your own little way. You pick up alcohol or you pick up drugs or you pick up something else or run away. It's just fueling the fire.
Yeah. And it's even worse than that because the drugs actually change the chemistry in your brain.
Yes, that's my next point.
You have it as a self, and the drugs have a place to help people over a hump. But it's to help people over a hump whilst they get the right training in place. It's like taking paracetamol, or Tylenol if from a stateside perspective.
I know what it is now,
you
but yeah.
take Tylenol,
I was like, what is that? That's when the very first time.
Tylenol and paracetamol. Let's take the analogy because we love analogies. If you've cut your knee, you'll take it because it hurts. Okay, so I would give Lily paracetamol, Tylenol, if she's in pain with her knee because she's fallen over and grazed it. But I don't give it to her all the time and keep it going because her body can do the healing. And the same principle applies to your mind, but we forget that is that we have the power to do the healing. And what's happened is the drugs companies, and I'm going to use the word drugs, have almost got to a point where people have become brainwashed.
Yes.
That the only solution is drugs. And the consequence of that is that people having their own personal power taken away from them when they have the power to do the healing. But you have to do the deep work. And we talked about this with Jess Lee. You have to do the deep work in order to do the healing. You can't just put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound and expect
it's not going to work.
You have to get the right support. So you have to get a surgeon, to sew you up. So you have to get the right specialist to help you. But the healing is what you do. The surgeon doesn't stay with you all the time.
At all.
And make all of the blood cells and all of the platelets and everything that allows your knee to heal. you do the healing. And the
Right.
same principle applies with psychological trauma, is we all have the power to heal, but we've got to allow people to tap into that superpower and use drugs appropriately to help people get over that hump. What I find really tragic is when people become dependent on a drug as a crutch for
Yeah.
them, because they haven't been given the appropriate therapy to allow them to do the deep work on themselves and to be able to do the healing for themselves. And there's lots and lots of different types of coaching and therapy, and I prefer coaching personally, but there's lots of different types of support out there for people beyond simply prescription approach. And the same, this isn't just about this issue isn't just about trauma. We can apply the same situation to COVID that we have
Yes,
now.
100%. Man, did you watch it? I don't watch the news, but I watch I obviously see Twitter and some of the memes of Boris Johnson right now. It's like hilarious. I was dying.
Well, I mean, vaccination is the first fix. Same as we talked about is using paracetamol or Tylenol, but it's not the only solution.
No.
And the people that heal are the people that where their immune systems can do the healing. But the vaccination is just there to support your immune system, but it's your immune system that's responsible for doing the healing. And there are many, many steps beyond just the first step. So I've got 10 in my latest blog that people can take to boost their immune system, and they're all within our power to do. But there's very little education that's being put out there. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to like and share this episode and leave a review on my website or on Apple Podcasts. If you're looking for opportunities to optimize your brain health or unchain your pain from a past trauma, make sure you visit my website www.ruthmaryallan.com and use the code podcast10 at checkout to get 10% off all programs. And always remember, you are not stuck with the brain you have. You have the power to make it better. You have the power to unchain your pain and optimize your brain power and performance so that you can win back energy and time doing what you love. Each episode of Brain Health Unchaining Your Pain with Dr. Ruth Allan is for educational and demonstration purposes only. The information shared in each episode should not be interpreted as medical advice. This episode should not be used to self-diagnose or self-treat any health, medical or physical condition. Do not use this episode to avoid going to your healthcare professional or to replace the advice they give you. Consult with a trusted healthcare professional before doing anything contained in this episode. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact www.ruthmaryallan.com/connect.